Dorit Kemsley opens up about the challenging ultimatum PK gave her. Dorit Kemsley has been so open about the faults in her relationship after separating from Paul PK Kemsley. The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills cast member has since filed for divorce from the British businessman and is now opening up about the uncomfortable conversation they had in the early days of their relationship. Before Dorit met PK, she worked in the fashion industry, moving to Italy in her 20s after graduating from college. But in an April 2025 interview with Briefing on Bravo, Dorit revealed that she had talked with PK while they were dating about her pursuing her career or starting a family. The results of this conversation led her to put her career on pause to officially start their family together in 2014. It was the first fight that PK and I had, she admitted to the publication. PK and I were very codependent. I had my own business. I had my factories in Italy and in Hong Kong. So I had to travel and was selling all over the world. I was also looking to grow it bigger and bigger. PK and I were not the type of people to be independent. She continued, noting that she was also very involved in PK's career. I looked after him, and I was his right-hand person and confidant and advisor, so it was a decision I had made. It was either this relationship or this career, she said. So she chose her relationship. Dorit Kemsley reveals she would still choose PK Kemsley over her career. She admitted that she was mad about this ultimatum, but then immediately knew that they were the real deal. And at first, when he had said, one of us needs to give it up and I think it should be you, I had a really, really strong reaction. I remember I stormed out and I went to go meet a girlfriend, she admitted. We had only been together for about a year, but it was different. I was engaged twice before PK to two wonderful men, and I didn't go down the aisle. And with PK, after 3 months, I felt like I'd known him my whole life. There was just something very different. It felt like two pieces of a puzzle that fit. My heart, everything felt like this was my future, she admitted. It wasn't an easy decision, but ultimately, when you're faced with challenging decisions, you have to really think about what is in your best interest. PK was the choice for me, and to build a life with him. If given the chance, I would make the same choice. Dorit Kemsley reveals what having her children has taught her. That decision led to Dorit and PK getting married and later welcoming their 2 children, 11-year-old son, Jagger Kemsley, and 9-year-old daughter, Phoenix Kemsley. Dorit told Briefing on Bravo that motherhood has given her so much purpose. Their lives are so much more important than my own, she said. I remember when I first became a mother, the first moment, I was so overwhelmed with so many emotions. I was holding my little Jagger with blonde hair and blue eyes, and I was so in love. She continued, admitting that having Jagger immediately made her selfless. You're thinking about what you need, what you want. Then all of a sudden, the first thought in the morning is him, she noted. So the biggest lesson is just how much more important they are, and how their well-being is far more important to me than my own. You will make sacrifices because of that. A love worth pausing for. The girl with global dreams. In the early spring of 2012, the streets of Milan buzzed with their usual pulse, coffee carts whistling on every corner, motorini weaving between narrow alleys, and fashion interns racing to showrooms with mood boards and portfolios in hand. Dorit Kemsley, then in her mid-30s, was one of those women who never slowed. She wasn't chasing dreams, she was living them. Her fashion line, an elegant fusion of modern tailoring and Mediterranean luxury, had taken root. Factories in Florence and Hong Kong hummed with productivity. Buyers from Paris and Tokyo took her calls. Her suitcase never gathered dust. If she wasn't in Italy, she was in Hong Kong, London, or New York, always selling, always designing. Yet, no matter how glossy the pages of Vogue she graced, there was one space she hadn't filled yet: love. True, lasting love. The kind that grounds you, that turns a jet-setter into someone who just wants to be home. Then came PK. Unexpected frequencies. Dorit met Paul PK Kemsley at a dinner party in Los Angeles while visiting a friend. He wasn't her usual type. British, slightly gruff, much older, but with a charm that felt rare. Where others were polished, PK was unapologetically himself. He didn't care about what shoes she wore or what brand of champagne was being poured. He talked about music, football, business, and philosophy, all over a glass of scotch. What surprised her most was how quickly they connected. It wasn't just flirtation, it was comfort. Ease, like they had skipped small talk and moved straight to something deeper. "I feel like I've known you forever," he said one night as they walked down Melrose, the city lights bouncing off his square-framed glasses. Dorit laughed. "I was just about to say that." They began seeing each other regularly, despite their long-distance lives. FaceTime calls at midnight, surprise visits, and long weekends hidden away from flashing cameras and culture chaos. Within 3 months, she knew he was different, and he seemed to feel the same. Then came the conversation that would define everything. The ultimatum. They were in the south of France, staying in a coastal villa in Antibes. It was sunset. PK had just poured her a glass of wine, but his tone wasn't romantic. It was serious, measured. "We need to talk about the future," he said, looking over the cliffs. Dorit's heart skipped. "Okay. I love you. I want a family with you. But I can't build something stable if you're always on a plane to Hong Kong or Milan. You're living 10 lives. I need one partner who's fully present." She blinked. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, one of us needs to give something up, and I think it should be you." It was like the air was sucked out of the room. She was stunned. "Give up my career?" Her voice cracked. Pete looked down, then back at her. "I know how much it means to you, but I also know what kind of life we can have if we're both all in." The moment was too big. She stormed out. The girlfriend's couch. She spent that night on her best friend Elisa's couch in Nice. Her phone buzzed with messages from PK, apologies, explanations, declarations of love. But Dorit couldn't think straight. Her whole identity was built around her independence, her empire. "He's asking too much," Elisa said gently, handing her a blanket. "Is he?" Dorit whispered. "What do you want?" That was the question. What did she want? The next morning, Dorit watched the sunrise alone. And for the first time, she imagined a different kind of life. One where she wasn't known for collections and campaigns, but for love, laughter, and legacy. She went back to PK. "I hate that you asked me to choose," she told him, "but I've made my choice." The choice. In 2014, Dorit and PK were married in a private ceremony in New York. It wasn't an extravagant affair. Just close friends, family, and the feeling that two people who were meant to be had finally found each other. Dorit placed her fashion company on an indefinite pause. She didn't sell it, just closed the doors gently. Her factories went quiet. Her calendar, once packed with fittings and flights, now made room for something entirely new: motherhood. When Jagger was born, everything shifted. "I held him in my arms," she later recalled, "and it felt like I had been living my life in black and white, and now it was color." Then came Phoenix, her daughter, with that same sparkle in her eyes that Dorit once had as a little girl. A love-tested. Marriage was never easy, especially not when it involved reality television, business pressures, and two headstrong people navigating life's highs and lows. PK's businesses were sometimes turbulent. Dorit, now involved in his ventures, became his advisor, his sounding board, his fierce defender. They were codependent in a way that sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. "The hardest part about being that close to someone," Dorit once said, "is that when things start to crack, you don't know where they begin." Was it him? Was it me? Or was it just time? In 2023, things began to fray. There were disagreements, distance, and public speculation. But the hardest part wasn't the paparazzi or the gossip columns. It was the quiet moments in bed when neither of them had anything left to say. In early 2024, they separated. Then, in 2025, Dorit filed for divorce. The interview sitting down with Briefing on Bravo in April 2025. Dorit was no longer the woman she had been in Milan, or even the woman who had stormed out on that French terrace years ago. She was a mother, a soon-to-be single woman, and someone who had made peace with her past. "Was I angry about the ultimatum?" she said in the interview. "Yes, it was hard to hear, but I also knew, deep down, that it wasn't really about control. It was about love. PK wanted a real partnership. He just didn't know how to ask for it gently." She paused, adjusting the ringless finger on her left hand. "I still would have chosen him, over and over, because choosing him gave me Jagger, it gave me Phoenix, and it taught me what it means to truly give of yourself." The mirror. After the cameras stopped rolling, Dorit sat in her dressing room. The makeup artist had left. The lights were dimmed. She looked at her reflection, older, wiser, but still glamorous. The kind of woman who had loved deeply, fought fiercely, and lost something along the way.